To the Dishman Hills Conservancy's 2021 Annual Meeting. We're so happy you could join us. We'll start out slow in the first couple minutes just to let any stragglers join, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. As far as Zoom etiquette goes, it's less etiquette and more general instructions. If you have any questions for the board during the meeting, please put it in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. The chat is also available for any general comments you have, and we'll get to the questions and comments at the end of the meeting. And this is our meeting agenda. We're starting off with President Kris Kopsinski. We have committee reports, the executive director's remarks, elections, and then questions and discussion afterward. All right, and we're going to start off with our President, Kris Kopsinski.
Well, greetings, everybody. And I think, Jeff, are you there? Well, he's...
Did you want me to introduce you, Kris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. My name's Jeff Lambert. I'm the executive director of the Dishman Hills Conservancy. I want to point out that Isabel Smith is our outreach director, and she's controlling the Zoom webinar. Thanks, Isabel. We also, our other staff person is Eli Johnson, who's our communication director, and he's helping out as well. But it's my pleasure to introduce our president, Kris Kopsinski. Of course, he's a famous mountain climber, construction company owner, but we know him as a conservation hero. In 2007, I got to know Kris when we had an opportunity to buy the Big Rock parcel, and we needed to raise about $50,000 in 2 or 3 weeks. And Kris, along with Bill Fix, Paul Fish, and Patty Houth, really got their act together and raised that money. The next year, we got Kris on the board, and since then, it's been one conservation success after another. So normally I would say, let's give a big round of applause to President Kris, but now let's just wave our hands up and down. So go ahead, Kris.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Jeff. My introductory remarks, before I do anything talk about the Conservancy at all, I want to thank our board members, Mary Weathers, Alan T. Miller, Art Zach, Guy Gifford, Jim Harless, John Isakoff, Michael Hamilton, Philip Santiancento, Rick Severin, and Rob Holly, who is retiring. We'll be talking about him later, and Susie Dix. And that board is our family that makes things happen in the Dishman Hills. It keeps it vibrant. We have an excellent staff with Isabel Smith for our outreach. We have Elijah Johnson, communications director, and we can't do anything without our executive director, Jeff Lambert. So that team of people is what keeps the trees healthy and the trails open and the good vibes coming for our new park in Spokane. Now, if Isabel, you could see from north to south, the original area. This is the oldest conservation area in the state, started in 1966. The trailhead for the northern section is where the mouse is up there on the top. And then we have a trailhead at the Phillips Creek, and then another trailhead over at Glen Rose. And then we have a trailhead down at Eiler Creek. And then we have a trailhead at the Big Rock, which is on the very south. And as you can see, it's kind of a checkerboard mosaic map of green. We're trying our best to connect all these to have the connectivity from north to south. And it takes a lot of effort from a lot of good people, and but I'm optimistic that it will eventually happen. So without further remarks, I'm going to turn it over to the committee reports in the Conservancy, and we're going to start with, we were going to start with finance, but our finance officer is on a backpack, so we'll have a few lines with that. Jeff will have a few lines of that in the executive director report. But we're going to start with conservation and Michael Hamilton.
Yep, I'm ready to go. Good evening. I'm Michael Hamilton, the chairman of the Conservation Committee. Other members of the committee are Kris Kopsinski, Susie Dix, Art Zach, and Jeff Lambert. And the committee's job is to provide the land and land access needed for the Conservancy's mission to save the Dishman Hills natural spaces while allowing for the public opportunities for recreation and education. The job started in 1967, 54 years ago, with our first land purchase and continues up to this very hour. There are currently 3,200 acres of protected conservation land in the Dishman Hills. While our committee is a small group and does not employ volunteer events, we do depend on Conservancy members and the public at large for resource support and social connections that make our land deals possible. So if you have any ideas, connections, insights, or offerings that would help us, please call, write, text, or email our executive director, Jeff Lambert, anytime, day or night. I understand he keeps his phone by his bed. A little bit about our committee work. Our main task is to find conservation land purchases and land access opportunities, craft a deal suitable to both the Conservancy and the landowner, and find the resources to make it happen. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Applied to many of these transactions are two important tools: patience and perseverance. Some of our most successful acquisitions have involved multi-generations and decades of conversation with landowners. Other deals were pop-up opportunities that demanded immediate attention with now or never action required. Sounds easy, doesn't it? There's no reason to believe that the future will be much different. Here are some of the tools that we have used to accomplish this task. For land acquisition, outright purchase is our preference. The DHC stands out amongst other similar conservation groups by using land ownership. This provides for us many advantages in both land management and land protection. But this is expensive, so we have to employ many other methods. Seeking out land donations or bargain sales has helped. Land exchanges or legacy conservation buyers have also been used. For land access, we've used conservation easements, trail easements, and wildlife migration corridors. One of the more important tools has been our alliance with other organizations that have shared our organization's mission. Of note has been the long-lasting relationships with government organizations such as Spokane County Parks and Recreation and Washington Department of Natural Resources, and with public conservation groups such as the Spokane Mountaineers, Audubon, and the Land Conservancy. The county's Conservation Futures Program has played a large role in our success in the Dishman Hills because these acquisition opportunities usually outstrip resources. To make them happen, the committee spends time prioritizing land deals that take into account goals in the DHC's 5-year plan, which we've already mentioned, portability, conservation values, and vulnerability to development. Our top priority currently is the connection of the various conservation lands already existing in the Dishman Hills. The flip side of finding all these opportunities is to figure out how to pay for them. The committee gets lots of help here. The main source of support here are donations, and donations. Little, big, or somewhere in between all help. Ongoing land deals have been successfully executed with funding campaigns. Celebration events have also helped. Grants have been an important part of land funding. An $800,000 state matching grant allowed us to make our latest purchases at Big Rock and Willow Springs. We also had to use an all-American feature called debt. Often, these constraints not allow us the luxury of paying all before we buy. I can safely say that our committee has more anxiety than the other committees. We enter large deals that are based on a faith in the future support of those who think our mission is important to the Spokane community. We know that existing urban development will result in conservation land disappearing and land prices climbing while the need for recreational space soars. There's a lot of now or never thinking, and I have lost some sleep going over the deals that are on the table. So thanks for your attention, and I'm counting on all of you out there helping where you can. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. And like we mentioned in the beginning, we'll reserve our questions and answers to the very end of the meeting. On education, Rick Severin runs our education committee and does a beautiful job. Rick, are you there?
Yes, I am.
There he is.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. My name's Rick Severin, and I've had the privilege to be the chair of the Education Committee since since 2016. We're a small group, but I think we have a lot to contribute. First, get to our mission statement. Our mission statement has 3 parts. And excuse me if I read it to you. To inspire kids of all ages to learn about the natural world and discover new connections to nature in their backyard, neighborhood parks, and local natural areas. That was critically important this year with COVID-19 putting such restrictions on doing any of our traditional programs and really limiting kids for a long time to learning from home and really access to their yards and their neighborhoods. We particularly have a focus of providing underserviced kids with the opportunity to experience nature firsthand through programs such as Kids in the Hills. Kids in the Hills since 2014 has served over 2,300 low-income kids with day-long experiences in the Dishman Hills. We are on target to bring another 489 3rd through 5th graders into the Hills in May and a little bit of June of 2020. Of course, that didn't happen. And our third mission is to educate and empower for future generations of students to preserve and protect the Dishman Hills. The hills aren't going to take care of themselves, and it's only through education that we can get the excitement and the knowledge necessary in our future generations to step in and do the job after all of us graybeards are gone. Next slide. A big partner in our education efforts was the Morningstar Foundation. Our missions really matched in that we worked hard to give those disadvantaged kids access to everything from nature to social services to the Morningstar Boys Ranch. And we were really fortunate to receive our first grant from them and apply it to our 2018 Kids on the Hills. We must have done something right because they, when we applied for another grant for the 2019 season, they did that grant as well. And that allowed us to add to the program with materials and allowed us to fund the schools to fund their transportation. And then for 2020, we were looking forward to an expanded program. And when COVID put an end to that, they were very generous in allowing us to use our grant funding to create the Nature at Home series. Right now, the Nature at Home series consists of 56 short YouTube videos organized into 7 categories that are currently available. And each video has its own kids flyer, which digs more deeply into the content. Flyers are particularly valuable to parents, teachers, and older children. And we also wanted to see how they would be meshing with the next generation science standards that apply to every child in the state of Washington and many children nationally in science education. And we even went to the extent of matching up the science standards for grades 3 through 5 with that would be supported by our Nature at Home series of videos, and we provided parents and teachers with that document as part of Nature at Home. If you want to learn any more about Nature at Home or the Morningstar Foundation, there are 2 links. They're pretty easy, dishmanhills.org/nature-at-home, or just go to dishmanhills.org and click Nature at Home, and Morningstar Foundation. And let them know, Morningstar, that you really appreciate the support of our education efforts. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the team that took on the task of creating Nature at Home. Between these 6 people, we created all of those videos, all those materials. And 2 of them really, we could not have done it without, and that's George and Susan Stratman. George literally shot all the video, edited all the video. Susan kept me on the straight and narrow with getting all the kids' flyers finished. She was a great editor and a great taskmaster. Stan Miller was our go-to guy for water in the hills. Peggy Tan is a birder and a longtime member of the Education Committee. And so she worked in the areas of habitat and things to do with birds, created a number of videos. Michelle Mckenzie is a real active mom with 3 kids that teaches at one of our local elementary schools. And she made challenged herself, and they spent 100 consecutive days visiting the Dishman Hills, and she created some really valuable content with her kids. And that smiling guy down in the corner, well, that's me, and enough said about that. We were faced with a challenge that everybody in the United States, quite frankly, North and South America and parts of Europe were facing when it came to outdoor and environmental education. We always have focused on getting kids out there, and every one of us had the same problem. How do we try to reach and engage those kids? And this is the means that we did to reach the kids during this time, not to replace being out in nature, but to hopefully keep the interest going and increase their knowledge so when they could get back out into nature, they could appreciate it more deeply. And, you know, volunteers create, if you meet these volunteers out in the hills, if your face looks familiar, a big thank you would be appreciated. I know they put in literally hundreds and hundreds of hours to work on this project. Next slide. Okay, our goals for 2021. Providing programming support to the DHC's communications and outreach directors that safely get kids and their families back into the hills. We want to expand our user base for Nature at Hills, Nature at Home. We really want to identify and contact potential community and institutional partners. So if you guys have got anybody out there, you represent an organization, or you have any suggestions of somebody that might like to consider being partnered with our education efforts, please send me that email. And a personal goal of mine is to participate in the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction's Informal Science Education project for the Eastern Washington region. And that includes both ESD 101 and 103. And go ahead and one more. Okay, volunteers are always needed. I need more members that have a passion for sharing the natural world with others. And if you have any volunteer or professional experience in sharing nature, or just want to give it a try, please contact me, Rick Severn, at education@dishmanhills.org, or give me a call at 509-951-4594. And if you ever feel like you want to make an extra monetary gift beyond your membership, you can certainly, you've got a lot of options, and one of those options is to designate it for education. Thanks again, and I hope to see you guys soon. Next.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Rick. It was a great report. We'll move on to the Stewardship Report with Guy and Isabel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Guy Gifford. The function of the Stewardship Committee is basically we're taking care of the over 1,000 acres of land that Dishman Hills Conservancy own. And as a reminder, basically we take over after Mike Hamilton and his committee has done all the hard work of prioritizing the land and then helping raise funds and the wonderful donations all you guys have given to Dishman Hills Conservancy. The committee's job now to do to help manage that land, to keep the condition of the plants and the trees healthy and help conserve the land. And we also take care of recreation. We give input to the county. We work with the county as well as help build trails and do other recreation-oriented activities, service projects in the greater Dishman Hills on all the ownerships within Dishman Hills, whether it's Department of Natural Resources, Spokane County Parks, or DHC. To do that, we do have two chairs of the committee. Dan Wilson is the Trails Chair / Recreation Chair, so he kind of focusing on the trail, the recreational side. My main focus as Stewardship Chair is the plants and the trees. How do we keep them in a condition that meets our goals and objectives? A couple big accomplishments we did this year. One, of course, is the 2.3 miles of trails on the Phillips Creek Trailhead tying it to Glen Rose. That flying L piece, as you can see here, them building it, was done with COVID restrictions and social distancing. They kind of did it, not with big groups, but with small people coming up 2 hours, 3 hours, a select group of people building that trail and getting it done ahead of schedule. Need to congratulate Lynn Smith of Spokane Mountaineers and Dan Wilson, our Trails Chair, who helped design that trail and led a lot of the service projects up there to get that trail constructed. And a lot of the planning of that was done in the Stewardship Committee. Why I put that plug in there is to be a member of the Stewardship Committee and give input. All you need to do is show up at our meetings. We meet on the Thursday before the regularly scheduled board meeting. And you go to our website, you can see when our next committee meeting is, and I can always add you to our mailings to announce the next Stewardship Committee. Next, Isabel. 2021, what we're kind of focusing on is, of course, the Flying L Trail. The plan is to add a new trail to make it a loop trail. The goal is to have it open in 21. We'll see if they can make that happen. It's going to be the trail design and the construction being organized and executed by DHC, Spokane Mountaineers, Evergreen East, and the Washington Trail Associations. Will be involved in the 2021, and those are the four groups that mainly were involved with the construction of the 2020 trail we did in the Flying L. Next, please. Another thing is we had that 44th parcel, and weed pulling has been one of our focus on this area. We wound up organizing ourselves, doing social distancing weed pulling events and having people come out for 1 or 2 hour weed pulling events in designated areas. And we had little chunks of areas for people to pull weeds. One of the successes I like to highlight on a weed pulling event, this last year was the first year we didn't use a four-wheeler to do some broadcast spraying in high density areas. Some of our weed events have been working quite well, so we reduce that usage of chemicals on a lot of the parcel because of the effectiveness of what we've been doing. We are going to continue moving north and expanding the areas we're trying to control the weeds. And also in 2020, we had a well at the bottom that was basically a whole 3-foot concrete structure with a 3-foot diameter lid on it that could be easily open and people could potentially go into it. And so we did close that well to prevent any issues of children or anyone else exploring that. 21, we're planning to install a barbless wire fence on the 44th parcel and continue the weed control efforts on that parcel. Next, please. The Wilson parcel, one of our newest acquisitions. A lot of work was around the house. Not everyone may realize that if we acquired a house with that. It hadn't been used for many, many years, like 4 years before we acquired it. And we've had large and small groups doing volunteer efforts around it. We've been having regular volunteer efforts with small groups coming up twice a week. Some of the things that people have been doing around it is cleaning the buildings. We've been focusing on fire hazard. This area you see right here, you couldn't see very well those pine trees before a lot of the work was done. They removed a lot of the wooden and barbed wire fences around the home as well as within the whole Wilson parcel. There's a lot of cross fences for grazing and other things historically there, and there's been a big push to remove that, as well as just general maintenance, i.e. when you own structures, you got to maintain them. We've also removed some of the outbuildings that were no longer functioning or they had deteriorated. Next, please. In 21, we're planning to do some what we call firewising landscape around the home. That's reducing the chance of being ignited in the next wildfire that will burn through that area. And we got a grant from the Spokane Conservation District to help do some of that. I'll be including putting a concrete ADA path around the home. We're going to continue to remove barbed wire fence throughout the parcel. Work on trail design and construction is one of the goals in 2021. And we'll also hopefully be doing a little bit forest management in 21 on the Wilson parcel. Next. We did get a youth crew. Department of Natural Resources had a crew that did some free work. The key thing is they came with a chipper and chainsaws. And so they'll chip a lot of material that was on the ground that a lot of volunteers had done. And so instead of burning it, we're able to chip that material out and get a lot of chainsaw work done as well. Next, please. Couple things in the natural areas. We did a lot of cleanup events of homeless camps and a lot of graffiti removal. You can see this before and after picture of what it looked like before on the left and on the right. And some of these cleanups are what we almost like call flash events. We send an email out or something, a rapid response event saying if you want to help, meet on this day and time. And then we get a group together to help remove all that material. And usually it doesn't take too long, since it's just a short event and that we're trying not to make it pile up. Try to get these as they happen, try to get rid of the stuff as soon as we can. Next. A couple cool things in the natural area in 21. A Girl Scout troop, one of their silver projects will be installing some updated trail markers in the natural area, as well as some confidence markers to help reduce the amount of people getting lost. Next weekend, Boy Scout Troop 430 and the Boer Climbing Coalition are going to be focusing a lot of graffiti removal in the natural area. The nice thing is the Boer Climbing Coalition is providing the technical expertise for the Boy Scouts so they know how to properly, safely, and ecologically friendly remove graffiti, because the climbing group has a lot of experience removing graffiti. And we're also going to continue to focus on partners with other organizations for the community benefit. Next, please. The other thing we'll be doing is forest management. In 2021, we have 2 forest management plans written for the 2 newest acquisitions, the Wilson parcel and the Big Rock addition. The goal, of course, is maintaining a healthy ecosystem and healthy trees, And these are just a couple pictures of what bark beetles do to unhealthy and healthy trees. The one on the left is showing you that the healthy tree kicked out the bark beetle, and the right one with the shows us the bark beetle one and got into the unhealthy ponderosa pine. Next, please. One of the exciting things that happened this year out of the Stewardship Committee was one of our goals the year before that never took off was a volunteer steward program. Isabel took that and ran with it, and she'll be talking about what that is now.
All right, let me get this set up. Okay, yeah, so with the pandemic, we obviously weren't hosting events anymore all of a sudden. So my project for 2020 was this volunteer steward program. We officially started it in May, just for a few specific volunteers that were already kind of doing the work. And we kind of built a program around them and for people exactly like them, because they were some super awesome volunteers that are still working with us now. We then made it available to our entire membership and advertised it. You may remember that from last fall. We now have about 30 volunteers that are officially volunteer stewards. So thank you so much to everyone who's been part of this program and working with me as I've worked out the kinks and issues with it. But now we've really got the ball rolling on it, and I'm super excited about it and what we have in the future. So basically, we started it because the Dishman Hills Conservancy needed more boots on the ground. It helps us do outreach and respond to issues on the trails, some things like a fallen tree on this trail. What are we going to do about it? People will make trails and walk around it, and that's not something we want. And it was a way to get the community involved in stewarding this land, so it's not all up to just us, because we are a really small organization. And I myself, I'm not out there hiking around reporting on the issues. So we have now a small army of really dedicated volunteers doing that. We provide them with training. We give them a hat, we give them a cute little badge, we give them tools, and we encourage them to go out and hike their favorite trails that they would be doing anyway. And then they report back to us and tell us about any issues they saw, what they did to try to fix it if they could. If we need to do something like contact the county, contact the sheriff, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like a response mechanism so that we can better respond to issues and faster, and so they don't sit there on the trail and cause issues in the future. And so that's our logo. If you see anybody out there wearing a green baseball cap with that logo on it in white, feel free to say hi. They're handing out maps, they'll give you directions. They are all super friendly, great people. So feel free to walk up to those guys. And so we've had it around for almost a year now, officially. My vision for this coming summer, as well as the future and hopefully coming years, would be to continue to recruit interested volunteers for this position. We do have an application process, a vetting process, so it is a little bit more intense than just signing up for a regular volunteer opportunity, which is everyone's also welcome to do that on our website. And there also is more information about the specific program on our website. It has its own tab under the Get Involved section. So if you're interested, this is just a brief overview. There is more information there. I'm hoping to increase training options, perhaps include a trail maintenance option with the WTA, possibly do a wilderness EMT training. It's kind of up to the volunteers. I'm really excited to expand this program into many different areas and recruit as many different people as possible, while still making the program very efficient and action focused. I'm hoping to incorporate some GIS capabilities and allow volunteers to collect data while actually out in the field so that we can make really data-driven decisions and make those decisions based on things we actually see on the ground in real time. And as always, we're going to continue to use this program to increase outreach from the Dishman Hills. There are a lot of people out there using our trails, enjoying our public lands that have never heard of the Dishman Hills Conservancy. So we really want to be able to reach out to those people, get them involved, get them to volunteer, and basically make it so that everyone can enjoy our trails safely. The website is down there at the bottom of the screen. I believe Elisha just dropped it in the chat if you'd like to check it out. And that's all I have on that. And then Next, we have the Executive Director's Report with Jeff.
Jeff, are you there?
Yes. Well, hi, everybody. So we have a terrific group of volunteer-run committees, and you might wonder what I do. So one thing that I'm working on is Be a Good Neighbor program. After 25 years of conservation advocacy and looking for recreation access, I've learned that the #1 reason that landowners don't want trails on their property or trails nearby is a history, maybe not even extensive, of trespassing. And along with that comes vandalism or leaving a gate open, or just the concern that one has with strangers walking across their property. So this program is about being a good neighbor. It's kind of a challenge. One of the first things I noticed when I moved here in 1982 was in places like the Dishman Hills and many other places around Spokane, it was pretty routine to hop a fence or cross private property without permission. Many apps don't distinguish between publicly accessible land and private land. The two that I recommend are REI and the Washington Trails Association app, which vet the trails that they have on those apps. Others have user-generated trails, which can mislead people into thinking that's the right way to go. A couple other things quickly. Be sure and obey the traffic rules. Even better, be exceptionally considerate to the neighborhoods that you're driving through. Don't raise a big cloud of dust, slow down, especially if there's kids or pets around. And finally, we have a lot of, we've been leaders when it comes to trailheads. The Stevens Creek Trailhead was the first correctly built trailhead in the whole Conservation Futures program. So park in those designated locations, don't park on the streets. Obviously, Holman Road, you have to park on the street. So we're going to be working with other organizations, Spokane County and others, to refine this program. Next slide, please. So we've already heard about our conservation goals. I want you to know we have a plan. So in 2018, we came up with our 5-year plan. #1 goal, of course, is to connect the existing conservation areas for wildlife habitat and for recreational trails. We knew that it was important not just to buy the land, but also to plan for additional trailheads. And the budget, about $6 million. So that can be kind of boggling. Next slide, please. So how are we doing after 3 years? Well, 2020 was rough, but even so, between the county buying the Flying L Ranch and our acquisitions, the Big Rock Addition and Wilson property down here, 472 acres. There's also over 100 acres of conservation easements, which help connect. This does not have public access. So remember, be a good neighbor. The county last fall opened up the Phillips Creek Trailhead, state-of-the-art cameras and a well-designed trail system. So we hope to do something similar in the Wilson area down here. I'd like to do a soft opening this year with really getting it on. Thank you. Really getting it on next year. So already after 3 years, we've raised over $3 million, roughly about $800,000 from a state grant that we had to match, The county's put in over $1 million, and then we've had private donations of about $1 million. So this is really doable. And one thing I want to mention about 2020 and our finances, our wonderful treasurer would probably provide more detail, but my message is we did surprisingly well in 2020. Our members and supporters rose to the challenge. It came late. We didn't have our normal in-person fundraising events, so I was kind of worried, but it all worked out just fine. So thank you very, very much. Next slide, please. So volunteers are vital. We, in 2020, had 12 board members. Every single one of them provided services that were absolutely essential to what we were doing. You've heard about the fabulous work from the Stewardship and Education committees. We also have all kinds of outreach and administration work that during normal times when we can do in person, they will show up to help out with our fundraising dinners and stuffing envelopes and all those sort of things. So one of the things that I've learned is when we give an opportunity for the community to volunteer, they show up. Next slide, please. So we have 3 couples that we've selected as volunteers of the year. The Education Committee is George and Susan Stratman. They were the core folks that put together the Nature at Home series with the Education Committee. That guy, George, did super high quality videos. Susan and the rest of the committee helped with the content, and Susan put together the information sheets that went along with every single video. So you got to check out those videos, especially if you have some kids or grandkids. They're terrific. So the Stewardship Committee, these 2 couples, John and Kathy, Tom and Maureen, believe it or not, they've gone out every week on Tuesday and Thursday mornings since last summer, working on the Wilson Conservation Area. Started off with removing weeds, picking up stuff that had been left on the property for 50 years. And I went out this morning. John and Kathy were picking up trimmings from thinning projects and piling them up to be chipped. And on the right, Tom and Maureen were removing rustic railings from the corral, and we're going to repurpose those and build new fencing. What would we do without these folks? Well, we wouldn't get nearly as much done. So what we're going to do is, for all these volunteers of the year, we're going to get them a framed L.R. Montgomery print of Big Rock, along with a gift certificate from Beacon Hill Catering, so they can enjoy a fabulous meal on us. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kris and Isabel to run the elections.
Oh, Kris, you're muted.
Am I okay now?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you, Jeff, so much, and all the committee members. Everybody that's listening, you can see that we're a small organization that does giant things for conservation. We're going to move on to elections here, and we'll be voting using poll questions that will appear on your screen. So please take a minute to select your answer to each question. And the first thing I want to do is recognize that Rob Hawley is retiring from our board. And if you're out there tonight, Rob, thank you so much for your dedicated, selfless service that you did for the Conservancy this last year. We really appreciate it. And hope you stay in touch with us and not too far away. The second issue, we're going to have two elections here. One is for the continuing board members, which you see on the screen, and then the next one will be for the two new board members. But we'll take this first one here. And we have Susie Dix, Guy Gifford, Michael Hamilton, Jim Harless, and John Isaacoff that are returning on the board, and we would like to have a motion to, first we're going to vote. You should have an icon or a poll in the middle of your screen to vote yes or no if you would like these people to return to the board.
Kris, technically you need to have AT make a motion and have it seconded. Call the question.
Yeah. Mr. President, I make the motion to approve the continuing board members, Susie Dix, Guy Gifford, Michael Hamilton, John Isaacoff, and Jim Harless.
Okay, AT has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Art Zach. So the motion is to have Susie Dix, Guy Gifford, Michael Hamilton, Jim Harless, and John Isaacoff remain on the board for another year. And now you can mark your ballot, yes or no.
Looks like we have about 80% voted, 49 out of 60. So for those last few who haven't voted yet, go ahead and get your votes in.
Okay.
But we have a far majority, so.
All right. It sounds to me like we have a majority of yes votes. So the motion will pass. Thank you, AT. And welcome back, Susie, Guy, Michael, Jim, and John for another year. Now, the second vote we have is for the election of, can anybody hear me? The second election we have is for the two new board members, Kris Beaker and Lynn Briggs. And I'd like to call on Kris Beaker first to say a few words of why she would like to be on the Dishman Hill board.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You're coming
Well,
through.
I'd like to thank the Dishman Hills Conservancy members for this opportunity to serve on the board. And I just feel that we're very fortunate here in the Spokane area to have such a beautiful area close to town where we can recreate and we can just experience nature. And this is attributed to the vision and efforts that the Conservancy has made. And I've been asked to step up and serve. And I personally have benefited from having access to the many trails in the Dishman Hills area. I grew up in Western Washington, but I've lived here in Spokane for over 30 years, and I've hiked all that time. And I'm a strong believer in community, and what the Dishman Hills Conservancy is doing benefits our community. And so for that reason, I would like to use my efforts to help with what Dishman Hills Conservancy is doing. And I look forward to meeting everyone at some point, hopefully on the trails.
Thank you, Kris. Thank you so much for those remarks. And we much look forward to meeting you other than a webinar or a Zoom meeting.
Yes.
Hopefully that will come when we can meet in person. Next is Lynn Briggs. Is Lynn there?
Yes, here I am. So I want to indicate that my motivations for being on the board are selfish. I want to see how a well-run organization moves. So, you know, I hope to do a lot of spying. My value is in my connections. I am a dean at Eastern for the next 4 months, and then I'm going to go back to faculty. But I know a lot of smart people who can help us with whatever various projects we have. I also think that being able to be alone in the silence of nature is incredibly important for the development of kids, especially in the like preteen age group. I see them when they're a little bit older, but to get them away from a screen, to get them to imagine other things and to see the sort of metaphors in life that nature can offer, I think is a wonderful thing for the kids who end up coming as adult students to universities to have in their back pocket. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to getting to know all of you.
Well, the feelings are mutual, Lynn. We all look forward to meeting you and Kris in person at one of our hopefully soon. We'll have
Yes.
a board meeting that's not on Zoom. And thank you for the words. And do we have a motion to accept these board members?
Mr. President, I move that we accept Kris Beaker and Lynn Briggs as new board members to the Dishman Hills Conservancy.
Thank you. AT has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I second the motion.
Okay. We have 2 seconds. So it looks like you're doubly elected. Maybe that means 4 years. No, thank you so much. The motion's been made and seconded, I think by Art and Mary. And so now we can vote all in favor of the 2 new board members, Kris and Lynn. You can mark your ballot now, and then Isabel, you can tell me how it comes out because I have no way of telling on my screen.
Gotcha. They're about 80% in right now with 47 out of 58 votes. So get your last votes in now. But either way, we definitely have a majority.
It sounds like a majority rules here, and without the motion passes to accept Kris Beaker and Lynn Briggs as new board members. So thank both of you so much for, you won't regret it. This is a good team of people, and like I say, we're a small organization that do big things. We're very proud of that. Now the final order of business is I don't usually brag about myself, but I'm gonna brag a little bit about tonight. I wrote a book, and I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Just a second, I have to close something out of here. It's called Into Thin Hair. It's on sale down at Ani's bookstore. By the way, it's not in the hair section, it's in the outdoor section. And for anybody who wants to take, 56 years ago, I took a trip up to the Dishman Hills at Big Rock and was so inspired by what I saw. I wondered what it would be like to climb to the tops of the highest peaks on every continent all over the world, before there were guides, before there were all the hullabaloo that you see nowadays. So if you want a book that will take you first person through these cultures and give you the geology and how the mountains were formed, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed in my story. I tell you one thing too. I've watched Jeopardy. I'm a fan of Jeopardy. Have been for most of my life, and I've never seen one Jeopardy champion that can name the highest peak on all 7 continents, and let alone give you the elevation. But I'm going to take you to 8 continents here. Australasia is a continent, and Papua New Guinea is one of the places that you go. The book This is a picture of up on the side of Everest. I did 2 routes on Mount Everest that are in this book, looking back at Makalu, which is the 5th highest mountain in the world. And to give you an idea of the scale, the mountain in the background is Kanchenjunga in the far upper left-hand corner of the screen. That's 110 miles away from where I took this picture. That's what a little bit of what the Himalayas is like. It's not like, this is not Big Rock, this is Makalu. This was a 4-man expedition that we took formed from Spokane. This story is in there. And then go ahead and next slide, Isabel. In Papua New Guinea, we trekked 3 weeks with the Dani tribe and ate and dined with cannibals, which they still practice. It's quite a different cultural experience, but hopefully you'll enjoy the stories into thin hair. And at the worst case, the book that I'm marketing, I'm a dreamer. I'm selling the book for $25, and about $7 of every book sold will go to the Dishman Hills Conservancy. So all I need to do is sell 1 million books, and we can buy all the land we need to in the Dishman Hills to complete our journey of connectivity from north to south. So hopefully you go down to Auntie's and buy it and start it out, and then 1 million books later, we'll have all the land we need. So anyway, I'm going to sign off tonight. I'm going to take any conversation or questions and pass those on to Jeff Lambert and Isabel at the bottom. I see there's quite a bit of chat here, but I'm the dunce in the room when it comes to media. I don't know how to answer these things. I would in person. I hope to meet everybody in person someday. And I hope everybody has enjoyed this meeting of the Dishman Hills Conservancy. We're one of the proud assets of Spokane that we can all be proud of, to have this big park that's growing up in the Dishman Hills. So anybody have any further notes, pass them on in your chat, and hopefully one of the board members can answer them before we sign off.
So Kris, we have a question about what's the long-term plan for the Wilson house, and I'm going to expand that just a little bit. The house was built in 1970. There's also a shop and a barn. Our focus was strictly on the conservation value of the rest of the property, which is pretty terrific. But upon further consideration, we hope to make that our headquarters, our office. We hope to have stewardship supplies and tools, and also have education opportunities there. So that's going to take a while. And right now we're doing things like burying the electrical primary and service lines. We're upgrading the water system. And if you get the drift, if we're working on that kind of stuff, there's plenty of work to do. So we welcome Dave Schaub. We welcome your involvement. If you would like to check it out, we'll take you on a tour.
This is Guy. I'm going to try to tackle question 2. Question 2 we got is, any opportunities or events for older people or those with limited physical abilities to participate in some way, perhaps walk in easier areas and spend time nature journaling, taking pictures, writing, etc. Seeing that if one loves nature but if not able to hike or walk too far, there are not any or many opportunities. Wondering about events for nature journey in particular. Many thanks for your consideration. That's an excellent question. There's 2 parts to that question. Opportunities I look at as recreational opportunities, hiking and walking, and then events. On the hiking and walking side, actually that's the first time I've seen a question like that. And to be honest, we really haven't considered that. We can consider it, and we should consider it. One suggestion I have for you, if you're interested in that, is join our stewardship committee. because that's something we have looked at before, and we need people to give us input on what would that look like on the ground. Because if I design it, it'll be perfect for me. Doesn't mean it'll meet everyone's needs. So we need that input on what that would look like, how that would be, for we can figure out how to incorporate that as we look at recreation in the future for in the Dishman Hills. And you can just go to our website and you can find our next meeting will be in April, and start giving us input on what that would look like. Is it hardscape trails, is it softscape trails, hardscape features, or what? And then we can see how that could fit with within our mission and goals. The second part of that question is events. I might pass that on to maybe Isabel. Do you want to take a stab at that, or Jeff?
Well, Isabel, the question is, are there opportunities for events with nature journaling or other events where you don't have to walk too far? And, you know, I would agree that in general, there is, you tend to build trails for able-bodied people. And I think something that we can do, not just in the Dishman Hills, but at all of the conservation futures properties and state parks, is to have short nature walks, opportunities to do things that connect people to nature, but it's not necessarily an athletic activity. And so, you know, my understanding is that in urban areas, they're really starved for, you know, parks you could walk to. So it's something that I think is really possible in the Dishman Hills because we're so close to neighborhoods. So good point, Barbara. We'll check it out.
Rick Severn with education. I think we've got some great opportunities for all of those people interested in those activities. Barb, if you'd contact me personally at either education@dishmanhills.org or my phone number, 951-4594. I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. I know that we can come up with some, with your input, we can come up with some maybe ideas right now. Back to you, Jeff.
Okay, quick comment. Carl Barentine has said that he's willing to do a National Moth Week evening event. Interestingly, Carl did an event, geez, I think it wasn't last year, the year before, where we never left the trailhead, and it was fascinating. So there's the kind of events that can appeal to everybody. So let's see what else we got here. We got a lot of folks thanking us. I will just say that the Spokane community has done this together. No single person or organization could do this by themselves. Zach has a impotent question, if that's the correct word. He asked, how was the dining with the cannibals? Or do we have to buy the book to find out? I don't know if Kris is still available to answer.
You know, I couldn't hear. Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes. The question is, how was the dining with the cannibals?
Well, I don't know how to quite answer that question. I was nervous. When I went there, it was in Irian Jaya. I was a little bit overweight, and they were looking at me like I might be tasty. It was. I think I explained it pretty well in the story. There's some very unusual places on this planet, and that's one of them.
So apparently you're going to have to book to get the details. Okay, so we're a little bit over an hour. You have one final chance to pop in a question. So going once, twice, 3 times. Isabel, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap it.
Oh boy. Okay, well, that is all we have today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and all of our speakers. I realize that was a lot of information thrown at you. If you missed anything or want to revisit a subject, feel free to visit our websites. All the maps to all the areas are also available on our websites, as is information about volunteering, the Volunteer Steward Program, our various committees, photographs, anything you could want and more. Don't forget to renew your membership for 2021 if you haven't already. That can also be done on our website. And definitely follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, Dishman Hills Conservancy or at Dishman Hills. And buy Kris's book at Auntie's. Support local business and the Dishman Hills Conservancy. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good job, Isabel.